The rain in Oregon does not wash things clean. It buries them. On a Tuesday night in November, 20 years ago, the rain was burying a sedan at the bottom of a ravine off Route 101. The car was upside down. The wheels were still spinning, hissing against the wet air. Inside, a 12-year-old boy was hanging by his seatbelt. Blood ran into his eyes, blinding him. The smell of gasoline was thick, choking out the smell of pine and wet earth. He was screaming, but the thunder drowned him out. Then, there was a face, a girl, maybe 10 years old, her hair plastered to her skull by the storm. She smashed the window with a rock. She didn't look like a hero. She looked terrified. Her hands were small and shaking as she reached in with a pocket knife to cut the belt. "Run," she had whispered. Her voice was the only warm thing in the world. "Run before it burns." She dragged him out. She pulled him up the muddy embankment, inch by agonizing inch, as the car below erupted into a ball of orange fire. He never got her name. Paramedics took him one way. The police took her another, and the memory of her face faded into the gray static of trauma. 20 years later, the sound of rain hitting glass still made Clara flinch, but this wasn't the wild rain of the Oregon coast. This was the polite, expensive rain of downtown Seattle, tapping against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse on the 42nd floor. Clara adjusted her apron. She was 30 years old, but her eyes looked 50. Her hands, red and chapped from the bleach, gripped the mahogany handle of the vacuum cleaner. She was invisible here. That was the job description. Mr. Blackwood, the owner of this glass castle, required silence. He required perfection, and he required invisibility. Clara had worked for Julian Blackwood for 3 years. In all that time, she had never seen his face clearly. He was a shadow that moved in the periphery, a silhouette standing on the balcony at midnight. A deep, baritone voice on the intercom telling her to leave the study. She knew things about him, though. She knew he didn't sleep. The sheets in the master bedroom were rarely disturbed, while the leather armchair in the library was always worn warm in the mornings. She knew he drank scotch, but only one glass, and he never finished it. And she knew he was in pain. She found the empty bottles of painkillers in the trash. She saw the way he walked on the rare occasions she caught a glimpse of him. A stiff, guarded gait, like a man holding himself together with steel wire. Clara finished vacuuming the hallway. She checked her watch. 6 o'clock, time to leave. She had to catch the bus to the south side. She had to get to the pharmacy before it closed. Her mother's heart medication wasn't covered by insurance, and the rent was 3 weeks late. The anxiety was a constant hum in her chest, a second heartbeat that never slowed down. She walked to the foyer to grab her coat. Suddenly, the heavy oak door of the study opened. Clara froze. She lowered her head, trained to shrink away. Mr. Blackwood stepped out. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than Clara made in a year. He didn't look at her. He looked at the floor where she had just cleaned. "Miss Evans." His voice was low, gravelly. Clara flinched. He rarely used her name. "Yes, sir," she whispered, staring at his polished shoes. "You missed a spot," he said, near the window. Clara's heart dropped. I'm sorry, sir. I'll get it right now." She rushed to grab the cloth from her pocket. She scrubbed the invisible speck on the marble. Her hands were shaking. "Please don't fire me," she thought. "Please, not this month." She stood up. "Is that better, sir?" Julian Blackwood finally turned his head. He looked at her. For the first time in 3 years, he looked her directly in the eyes. His eyes were dark, stormy, and filled with a strange, terrifying recognition. He didn't look at her like a maid. He looked at her like a man looking at a ghost. "It will do," he said softly. "Leave the cloth. Go home, Clara. It's raining." He turned and walked back into the darkness of his study. Clara stood there, shivering. He had called her Clara, not Miss Evans, and the way he said it sounded like an apology. The bus ride home took 45 minutes. Clara sat in the back, her forehead pressed against the cold window. The city lights smeared into long streaks of neon. She opened her purse and counted the cash tips she had made from her other cleaning gig that morning. $22. It wasn't enough. When she got to the small, damp apartment she shared with her mother, the lights were off, not because her mother was sleeping, but because the power company had finally made good on their threat. "Mom," Clara called out, using her phone flashlight to navigate the clutter of the living room. Elena was sitting on the couch, wrapped in 3 blankets. She was coughing, a wet, rattling sound that made Clara's blood run cold. "They cut it, Clara," Elena whispered. "I'm sorry. I tried to call them, but—" "It's okay, Mom." Clara forced a smile she didn't feel. "I get paid on Friday. Mr. Blackwood always pays on time. We'll fix it." She went to the kitchen to light candles. As she struck the match, she looked at the burn scar on the back of her left hand. It was shaped like a jagged star, a souvenir from 20 years ago, from the burning car, from the boy she had dragged through the flames. She rubbed it unconsciously. It always itched when it rained. The next day, the atmosphere in the penthouse was different, heavier. Clara arrived early, hoping to finish her work before Mr. Blackwood woke up, but he was already awake. He was sitting at the dining table reading a newspaper. A cup of black coffee sat untouched. "Good morning, sir," Clara said, trying to slip past him into the kitchen. "Sit down, Clara." He didn't look up from the paper. Clara stopped. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. He was going to fire her. He knew she was desperate. He smelled the poverty on her clothes, and he was disgusted. She walked over to the table and sat on the edge of the velvet chair. She felt small, dirty. Julian folded the newspaper. He pushed a white envelope across the mahogany table. It wasn't a paycheck. It was too thick. "Open it," he commanded. Clara's fingers trembled as she lifted the flap. Inside was cash, a stack of $100 bills. $5,000, sir? Clara gasped, pulling her hand back as if the money were hot. I don't understand. Is this severance? Am I fired?" "No." Julian stood up. He walked to the window, his back to her. "I noticed your coat is thin, and yesterday you were limping. I assume you have bills. Consider this a bonus, an advance." Clara stared at his back. Wealthy men didn't give $5,000 bonuses to maids because they noticed a limp. Wealthy men didn't notice limps at all. "Mr. Blackwood, I can't take this," Clara said, her pride warring with her desperation. "I haven't earned it." He turned around. His face was tight, his jaw clenched. "You earned it a long time ago," he said almost to himself. Then he cleared his throat, the mask of the cold billionaire sliding back into place. "Take it, or you're fired. Those are your options." Clara looked at the money. She thought of the dark apartment. She thought of her mother's cough. She took the envelope. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Julian nodded. He looked like he wanted to say something else. He took a step toward her, his hand reaching out slightly. Then he stopped. He saw the scar on her hand, the jagged star. His eyes locked onto it. He went pale. The air in the room suddenly felt electric. Charged with a history Clara didn't understand. "Get back to work," he snapped, turning away abruptly. "And don't clean the library today. I don't want to be disturbed." He stormed out of the room. Clara sat there, the envelope heavy in her lap. She felt a strange sense of vertigo. Who was this man? And why did it feel like he was angry at himself, not her? 2 weeks passed. The dynamic in the house had shifted. Julian was no longer invisible. He was present. He started working from the living room while she cleaned the kitchen. He asked her questions, small, awkward questions. "Do you like the rain, Clara? What is your mother's name? Does your hand still hurt?" Clara answered him cautiously. She was terrified of the shift. Intimacy with a boss was a dangerous game, one she couldn't afford to lose. But she also felt drawn to him. There was a sadness in him that mirrored her own, a loneliness that money couldn't fill. Then came the storm. It was the worst storm Seattle had seen in a decade. Winds of 80 miles an hour battered the glass tower. The building groaned and swayed like a living thing. Clara was in the library, dusting the high shelves, when the world went black. The power cut out. The hum of the HVAC, the lights, the security system, everything died instantly. The silence was deafening. Then came the thunder. A crack so loud it shook the floorboards. From the hallway, Clara heard a sound. A crash. And then a ragged, gasping sound. "Mr. Blackwood," she called out, fumbling for her phone light. She ran into the hallway. Julian was on the floor. He had knocked over a vase. He was curled into a ball, his back against the wall, clutching his chest. He was hyperventilating. His eyes were wide, unseeing, staring at nothing. "Sir," Clara dropped to her knees beside him. She shone the light on his face. He was sweating profusely. "Fire," he gasped. "Get out, it's burning. Can't you smell the gas?" Clara froze. There was no gas, there was no fire. It was a panic attack, a flashback. She knew what this was. She had seen her mother go through it after her dad died. Julian grabbed her wrist. His grip was bruising. "Don't leave me," he begged, his voice cracking into a child's whimper. "Please, don't leave me in the car. The car." The word struck Clara like a physical blow. She looked at his face, really looked at him. The silver hair at his temples, the sharp jawline. But under the harsh light of the phone, she saw the scar, a long, thin white line running from his hairline down behind his ear, and another one on his neck. Burn marks. The memory hit her. The ravine, the rain, the boy hanging upside down. She remembered the way the seatbelt had dug into his neck. She remembered his eyes, gray, stormy, just like these eyes. "Oh my God," Clara whispered, "it's you." Julian was still spiraling. He couldn't breathe. Clara did the only thing she knew how to do. She dropped the phone. She grabbed his face with both hands. She forced him to look at her. "Hey," she said, her voice firm and calm, the same voice she had used 20 years ago. "Look at me. We're not in the car. There is no fire. Feel the floor. It's cold marble. It's safe." Julian blinked. He struggled to focus on her. "Clara," he wheezed, "it's me." She began to hum. It was a melody she hadn't thought of in years. Mockingbird. It was the song she had hummed to the boy in the wreck while they waited for the ambulance. To keep him from screaming when the pain hit. Julian's breathing hitched, stopped shaking. He listened to the hum. His eyes cleared. The terror receded, replaced by a profound, breaking sorrow. He slumped forward, resting his forehead against her shoulder. "You found me," he whispered into her uniform. "I didn't know," Clara said, tears streaming down her face, wetting his expensive suit. "I didn't know it was you, I knew." Julian pulled back. He looked at her, his face raw and open. "I knew the moment I saw the scar on your hand 3 years ago. I hired you because of it. The power was still out." They sat on the floor of the hallway, illuminated only by the flashlight beam aimed at the ceiling. The barrier between master and maid was gone, burned away by the truth. "Why?" Clara asked. Her voice echoed in the large space. "If you knew who I was, why did you make me scrub your floors? Why didn't you say something?" Julian laughed bitterly. He rubbed his face with his hands. "Because I was a coward, Clara. I have been looking for you for half my life. My father, after the accident, he moved us to Europe. He wanted to erase the trauma. He paid off the police to keep my name out of the papers. He forbid me from finding the girl who saved me. He said you were just a local kid, a nobody." Julian's voice hardened. "When I inherited the company, I hired a private investigator. It took me 2 years to track you down. I found out you were struggling. That life had been hard on you. I wanted to help, so you hired me as a maid." Clara's voice was sharp. "You watched me struggle to pay rent while you sat in this tower. I didn't know how to approach you." Julian shouted, then lowered his voice. "Look at me, Clara. Look at this place. If I had just walked up to you and handed you a check, you would have hated me. You would have thought I was buying off my conscience. I wanted to know you. I wanted to see if you were still the brave girl who climbed into a burning car. And what did you find?" Clara asked softly. "I found out you are stronger than I ever was." Julian looked at her with intense admiration. "I watched you work yourself to the bone for your mother. I watched you keep your dignity when people like me treated you like furniture. I wanted to tell you every single day. But every day I waited, the lie got bigger, and I got more ashamed." He reached into his pocket. He pulled out something small and metallic. It was a pocket knife. "Old, rusted, with a pearl handle. You left this behind," Julian said. "In the car. You dropped it when you cut me down. I've carried it in my pocket for 20 years. It's my good luck charm, because it reminds me that even in hell, someone can reach in and pull you out." Clara reached out and took the knife. The metal was warm from his hand. She remembered stealing it from her father's tackle box that morning. She remembered how heavy it felt when she saw it at the seatbelt. "You kept it," she whispered. "I kept it." Julian said, "And I kept my promise. You told me to run, so I ran. I built all of this, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just glass and money. The only real thing I have is the fact that I'm breathing, and I'm breathing because of you." The lights flickered. Then, with a hum, the power returned. The penthouse was flooded with bright, artificial light. It should have shattered the moment, but it didn't. Clara looked at the billionaire. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a boss. He was the scared boy in the rain, and she wasn't the maid. She was the savior. The next morning, Clara did not wear her uniform. She wore her best dress, a simple blue cotton dress that brought out the color of her eyes. She took the elevator up to the 42nd floor. She used her key. Julian was waiting for her on the balcony. The storm had passed. The sky was a brilliant, washed-clean blue. He turned when he heard her. He smiled, a real smile, one that reached his eyes. "Did you bring it?" he asked. Clara nodded. She handed him the resignation letter. Julian took it. He didn't read it. He tore it in half. "Good," he said, "because you're not quitting. You're being promoted." "Promoted to what?" Clara asked, stepping up to the railing beside him. "Partner," Julian said, "not in business, in life. I have a foundation, Clara. We help victims of trauma. We help families who can't pay medical bills. But I'm just a guy who writes checks. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to heal them. You do. I want you to run it." Clara stared at him. This wasn't charity. This was purpose. "And my mother?" she asked. Julian pointed to the skyline. "I bought the building on 5th Street, the one with the garden apartments. Unit 4B is in her name. The keys are on the table. The debt is paid, Clara, all of it." Clara felt the tears coming again, but these weren't tears of exhaustion. They were tears of release. The heavy weight she had carried since she was 10 years old. The need to save everyone, the need to survive. It was lifting. She looked down at her hand, at the jagged scar. Julian reached out and took her hand. He ran his thumb over the scar. He didn't pull away. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed the scar. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving me then and for saving me now." Clara looked out at the city. She realized that life was a circle. You put kindness into the world, and sometimes it takes 20 years to come back, but when it does, it comes back like a flood. She squeezed his hand. "I'm not wearing the apron again, Julian," he laughed. The sound was light and free. "I promise, no more aprons." They stood there, hand in hand, two survivors watching the sun rise over the city. They were no longer defined by the tragedy that broke them. They were defined by the love that put them back together. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.